because I've been selling since I was 9 years old. I love to sell, and I learned how to sell from a platform, and one of the 2 or 3 guys that sold the most stuff ever in the world, and everybody wanted my signature. And Jack and I were sitting at breakfast, and he showed me 65 stories that I'd written. And I said, "Hey, Jack, those are my stories. You can't do this without me, because I am the seminal writer. So I'm sort of addicted to writing." He said, "Okay, 50-50. And I don't know what Jack said, but I would say we've had several billion readers, because I'll just do one bizarre story.
Welcome to the Swedish Wealth Institute Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Wood, and today we have a very exciting episode for you. My guest is Mark Victor Hansen. So we've had Chicken Soup for the Soul co-creator Jack Canfield on the show in the past. Mark Victor Hansen was his co-author and was the one who really drove the sales and promotion, which is what turned it into the global phenomenon. Together, they co-created one of the most influential personal development book series of all time, with over 600 million copies sold, billions in revenue. And what was so fun about this conversation is we didn't just talk about the success. Mark breaks down step by step how it actually happened, how they did it, and how you can do the same. We talk about what it really takes to create something that impacts the entire world and the principles behind making it resonate so deeply that it spreads from person to person and genuinely changes lives. And of course, as always, I have a special surprise for you as a thank you from the Swedish Wealth Institute to listening to this episode. Before I share it, can I ask you a quick favor? If you've been enjoying this podcast, please do what thousands of people all around the world already have done. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an upcoming episode. And please share this or other episodes with friends or family that you think would be impacted in a positive way. Now, for my surprise here for you today, as a thank you for listening, we're doing a limited giveaway of free tickets to our Money Mastery New Year's Summit, featuring some of the best speakers in the world. That includes Robert Kiyosaki, Les Brown, Nick Vujicic, Marci Shimoff, Jack Canfield, Tracy, Janet Atwood, and more. So if you want to start the year with the right strategy, the right mindset, and the right circle, grab your free ticket in the show notes and do it now, because when those free tickets are gone, they're gone. All right, let's get into it. Here is Mark Victor Hansen. You've co-authored one of the most successful book series in the history of the world. 500 million sold, yeah. We recently had Jack come on the show, and he talked about how you guys partnered up around that book. I'd love to hear your version of how did that partnership happen?
I don't know where he started, but what happened is we were both on the same program and had never met physically. Now, I knew Jack's stuff very well. We were on a program called Mandala with 6,000 people, and I'm the tie-up. I think he was a keynote speaker. And then he came up to me after I sold $1 gazillion worth of stuff, because I've been selling since I was 9 years old. I love to sell, and I learned how to sell from a platform. And I'm one of the 2 or 3 guys that sold the most stuff ever in the world. And I've done like 7,000 talks around the world and made gazillions of dollars, and just very thankful. And it's been a superlative business. But anyhow, he comes up to me and said, "Man, I've never seen anyone," it's called a table rush in our business. I've never seen anyone have, we had a couple thousand people in line buying from all my staff, and they were going nuts, and everybody wanted my signature. And Jack hung out at the end and said, "I'm Jack Canfield." I said, "I know. You wrote the book 101 Ways to Build Self-Esteem in the Classroom, and you're at Harvard, third in your class." And I went through his whole Vita, which he said, "How the hell do you know that?" I said, I live in biography. I just studied the world's best minds, and you've got one of them." He said, "Well, can I take you to dinner?" I think that's what we did. It was late, and we befriended each other. And then suddenly I got him on the board of directors of the Inside Edge. And one day he comes, because I taught him, I said, if you want to make a lot of money, you've got to visualize it to realize it. It was said tapes in a book I'd done back behind me somewhere, is my book on visualizing is realizing. And I said, you got to put your goals either on the ceiling or on the mirror. And when we did Chicken Soup, we wrote a 3x5 card. I'm so happy and thankful that we're selling $1.5 million in a year and a half. And we came out June 28th, 1993, and Christmas time we'd sold 1.2 million. So we were 300,000 short, but the next year I wrote 5 million, and next year I wrote 10 million. Next year I wrote 15 million, and we pulled off all those goals because once you got momentum, you got to keep going up. And we had figured out the model that was irresistible to the reader, which the kind of books we do in my publishing house are irresistible, compelling reading. And we befriended each other. And his wife, who is a doctor who I thought the world of, said, Jack, you don't really believe this crap Mark says that you put a goal that you're going to earn $1 million and you got to read it 4 times a day and you brand it in your brain, etch it in the fabric of being, and then it clicks true. Because your mind is a broadcasting and receiving station on a full-time basis, and you're always sending out a vibratory intent. And before we started this show, I was telling you about my vibratory intent is to do more biographies than anyone's ever done because I've got the team of teams, right? I mean, I'm a team builder, and Jack and I became a team. And a team is a mastermind in Andrew Carnegie's term, which he taught Napoleon Hill. 1 and 1 come together, you have the power of 11. And Andy learned it from Jesus because Jesus read the New Testament and said, holy cow, the guy didn't pull his first miracle until he had 12 disciples synchronized, going the same place, same time, same opportunity. And then that creates the miracle because you go out of the physical, mental body, the 3D, to you go into 4 reality where you create your reality. You live in a container of infinite possibility is what the big guy said. And Andy said, I can do that. And he became the world's richest man. And I now wrote a book that's coming out shortly called America's Golden Age, which I'm saying, look, Elon Musk is that guy right now. He's got 8 multi-billion-dollar companies because he's got a team. No one thinks about it, but he's got a team of 12 superstars around him. How's that? Is that an over answer?
Well, we're definitely going to dive into that because that number 12 is popping up. So that one I want to ask about. What I want to ask before that is, how did you kind of identify that you wanted to write Chicken Soup for the Soul with Jack? Because he started the book and then you kind of said, look, let me do this together with you. How did you come to that decision?
Jack and I were sitting at breakfast. We were on the board of the Inside Edge together, and he showed me 65 stories that I'd written. And I said, hey, Jack, those are my stories. You can't do this without me because I am the seminal writer here and have been and still am. There's not a day I don't write. So I'm sort of addicted to writing. In other words, like I was teaching you a minute ago in the book we're going to talk about a little later, Ask, The Bridge to Your Dreams, Your Destiny. My destiny is being a communicator, both mentally, physically, financially, but most importantly, communicate in writing. Because according to Guinness Book of Records, I've done 328 books and I'm the world's best-selling author. So, and somewhere pushing the edge of 600 million at the moment. So we're smoking and we're having fun and we're doing it literally around the world. So Jack and I sat together. He said, okay, 50-50. And I said, good. And then we really went to work. We met twice a week if we weren't traveling, speaking, either at his office or my office. And it was driving our respective wives nuts because, look, you guys, we got turned down. I think he probably told you 144 times. And because I've been training sales forever, I train one clean 4-letter word, NEXT, next. Because there's somebody out there that'll buy whatever you're selling, but you've got to just keep going until you get it. And every act is its own reward, is what Emerson said. So I knew that if we knock on enough doors, we'll find it. And aggregating pink slips, which is what the publishing industry gives you, they go, Dear Mark and Jack, we don't want you.
And how do you teach people when they get these rejections? Because you went through 144 rejections. How do you teach people to overcome that and still have the courage to ask that 145th time?
You've got to have so much passionate purposefulness that like I said here a second ago, that it's your destiny. Everyone has a divine destiny. You were coded before birth. The line in Jeremiah in the Old Testament says, before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. And it means that you've got a spirit to go connect. And like you and I, based on, I've never talked to you before today, as far as I know. I mean, other than we've written emails to each other. But the fact of the matter is you and I had no choice but to connect, to synchronize in time and space because we're both of the same mind. When you do the mastermind lines, 1 and 1 get together, you create a third new invisible mind. And it goes out to the whole world, and you have to connect with the people that are like-minded. So and you went through the litany of all my friends, my neighbor right down the street here is Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, and we're on a lot of programs together, and Jack and I had it synchronized because we were meant to do this work. I don't know what Jack said, but I would say we've had several billion readers because I've gone to China back when it was capitalistically communistic. Now it's Maoistically communistic. I know not supposed to be political, but the only book sold in China other than the Little Red Book, which is badly written, is our book. And we sold 374 million books in China. So when I go to China, they do giant signs with my wife, Crystal, and I. And, I'll just do one bizarre story. I never thought I needed a bodyguard. I'm big. I'm 6'4" and very strong and fit. And I exercise an hour and a half a day. So I'm solid as a rock, right? And I know martial arts,
right?
But not expecting it. We're going into the top hotel in Shanghai, which is the business capital of China. And this lady who's been seeing all these, things think I must be a god of creating wealth because it says Mark's going to make you rich. Everybody that came to the seminar paid $7,000 each. So they were all rich. 7,000 people were rich already before I got there. But this woman dives at a 5-star hotel, dives to touch, in Jesus' language, it's if I can touch the hem of his garment, I'll get well. She thought if she could touch my clothes, she'd get rich. Well, these guys pulled her off me, and my wife and I are looking, what? I'd never been there before. But I suddenly realized I'm not Elvis generally, but in that, and he and I had the same birth date. He was much older, but January 8th. It astounded me that I thought I'd never be that famous that somebody would want to touch me.
Yeah, I don't think any one of us expect that. How do you keep going when you keep getting no's? Like, how do you do that?
Dr. Hill teaches in Think and Grow Rich, which you learn from Andrew Carnegie, is you got to have a white hot burning desire. You go to bed thinking about it the last thing at night. It's got to be your magnificent obsession. You wake up in the morning thinking about it. And in the middle of the night when you wake up, now because of my age, I get to go to the bathroom more than most because prostate expands in men, that's one of the things I'd love somebody to cure, man. If they cured it and came to me, I can make them $1 billion that quick because everybody over 65 male have that problem. So, and there's nothing that I know of that does it. And I hang around a lot of medical groups and all of them are full of crap. They don't have a solution. The point is that when I wake up, my mind goes on red alert and it says, you could do this, 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 and this, and you're going to have this, around. And because my goal as a probably the fast growing publisher on the planet, because that was my goal, is it, and I'm realizing it, is it says you are going to figure out how to sell books to the world. The trouble in the publishing industry, and like I did 1 Minute Millionaire, we melted down Amazon and sold so many books. Jeff Bezos called us up and said, get your ass up here. I'll pay for first class tickets. I wish I brought a video camera. We had no idea that he was going to become the richest guy. But the point is, all the big companies only sell 17% of the people that can speak English. Duh, my little grandkid would say, duh, Grampy, come on, you know better than that. I said, I want to sell 8.4 billion of us that are alive, and I hope we go to 12 billion because we need more people, not less people, right? More people makes the economy better. More people makes the world better. We don't have too many people. I know I'm way off target for you, but it's something I want everyone to think about because the world can easily, when I was in graduate school getting my degrees with Buckminster Fuller, we said we could easily sustain 12 billion, but you got to design for it. We're just not we don't make roads right, water right. We don't do a lot of things right. Remember, I started this by saying wisdom is right thinking with right action, getting right result right now. Something like that, I said.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. I've just contacted Patagonia because I read their book and about just sustainable farming practices means you can get a lot more food from a lot less area, right? So
when I was in graduate school at Bucky Fuller, which was one of the 4 smartest guys in the world, according to Time magazine, he finished Einstein's unified field theory, said, let's make the world work for 100% of humanity. And you can look up Bucky and watch his videos and read his 40 books and then see his geodesic dome inventions, Dymaxion cars that run on 3 wheels, park in their own space. Cool stuff back in the 30s. And he was born in 1895. But Bucky made us write down 10 outstanding goals that we do in our life. And a la what Patagonia, I didn't know they were doing that, but I wear their clothes, but and they might do something else. But I said, I want to feed unfed humanity expeditiously and omniconsiderately, right? Why should everybody should be fed? And I'm going to sidebar even to the littlest. One of our daughters is head of her class at Arizona State University, and a superstar taking Asperger's positive kids and pulling out their genius. Anyhow, she said, hey, Dad, because we've had this dumb-ass government shutdown, which was useless and wasted and screwed up our economy by a quarter for 40 days. It's now over. And some people are going to be looking at this, back at this and say, well, the kids are starving in our class. Some of the parents have no money. I said, there's no kid of mine that's going to be hungry and no kid in my kid's class that's hungry. What do you need? She said, I need these beef sticks. They cost $1 each. I said, just give me how many you want and I'll buy them for the school. We're done. Because you can't, if you make money, if you're born in the creator of the image of God, and in the beginning, you and I were created in that image, then you got 3 C's. You got to be creative, you got to contribute, and then you got to be charitable. You need to have democratizing wealth means you make more than enough to pay for yourself. Well, if I make $100,000 a year, then I don't have to work. Or if I have $1 million or $100 million or $1 billion. No. You got to be tithing 10% back. I wrote a whole book called The Miracle of Tithing. Businessmen look and say, what's the miracle of tithing? And I said, you haven't been tithed enough lately.
I so agree. I mean, we did a similar thing during COVID. We started a Christmas charity where, you know, families that couldn't afford a Christmas dinner could apply for and get a full Christmas dinner and get some presents for their kids and everything. And now, obviously, as we've grown in size, now, you know, for each person that signs up to one of our free events, we donate, we donate enough to our partner Eden Reforestation Project for them to restore or reclaim 1 square meter of land. And, you know, we're donating cash flow games to impoverished communities. So we're trying to get as much support out as possible. And I think it's so important.
I'll give you some of my electronic books that'll help too, because, you know, what Andrew Carnegie said is, look, I gave the library, and I think he gave 4,529 libraries in America and in Scotland, his home country. As you know, he went back to, I've stayed at his I've been to his 2 houses in New York. He's got a house on Fifth Avenue at 92nd and Fifth Avenue, 60,000 square feet. And everybody, the president stayed there. My hero, Mark Twain, stayed there. Helen Keller stayed there. So it was quite a place. And then in Scotland, he had 30,000 acres, and I paid $4,000 a night for our family to stay there. And my kids got to go falconing and all kinds of cool stuff. But the point is, he said, look, the greatest gift you can give is a gift of knowledge that goes to wisdom. And I'm not quoting him directly, but that's close enough. I'll buy that. I'm giving it. He would agree with me. He and I would be best friends. If he was alive, I'd do his book, and I'd do it better even than he did it, The Gospel of Wealth, and God bless him, his books have helped me a lot, and his thinking was enormously good. But here's a guy with a 3rd grade education that became, like Elon Musk, the smartest, wisest guy of his time in business.
Let's talk about that. Go back to what you mentioned earlier, how Andrew Carnegie got from the New Testament how to build a mastermind group. He gave that to Napoleon Hill, who put that into Think and Grow Rich. And you're now seeing that play out with some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, including Elon Musk. Explain that. What is 12 an important number in that? And how are you seeing that play out?
Yeah, you got to have the first guy first, right? You know, he picked his people because he could see the light in him. And I just am thinking this through even as we're talking for the first time, really, is that the other day we went to a family experience and all the kids were there, like 50 kids at this birthday party of one of our relatives. And there's one kid that shined more than anyone. I mean, the kid had the light force energy, the leadership energy. He's maybe 11 or 12 years old and came up to me and said, so proud to meet you. His parents had taught him right, and he had a real human handshake. And when we're to leave, he had no idea that I was world's best-selling author. Nobody told him anything. I just watched him play and lead all the games. And then we're leaving the house, and he runs to the front door and shakes my hand and says, I look forward to being with you again sometime. And he wasn't with me maybe 1 or 2 minutes. We talked. I didn't give him a rap like we're doing. The point is, he would have been one of the 12 that I would pick. And I said to him on the way out, I said, look, you could work at your dad's company. His dad owns a trucking company. I said, but here's what, and really does a good job and makes money. But I said, here's the point. When you need to have mentorship with somebody, and I'd like to be your mentor, because when I wrote a book with the most famous guy in America, Art Linkletter, How to Make the Rest of Your Life the Best of Your Life, when he was 96, we said you got to embrace 2 20-somethings every year for the rest of your life once you're 40, because otherwise you start aging. But if you keep your mind actively alive, you don't age. That's the point. That's the best way to de-age. It's mental, spiritual before it's physical and emotional. Anyhow, so the 12 is interesting. I know Andrew Carnegie, who he picked. I name all the people like Frick, and I've been to the Frick Museum, and I'm working with the richest guy in Pennsylvania. We're doing his book right now, a student of mine, actually, who's now 46 and worth about $70 million. And he started with a little company by his friend fell over and won a $5 million lawsuit against Walmart for having potholes in the parking lot. And he said, hell, I can fix this. Because what an entrepreneur does is they find a problem, solve it, scale it, and make a vast fortune and then do enormous amount of good. But this guy's name's Brian Hess. His book's coming out shortly with us called Trade Skills. And then we're doing another book, World's Greatest Marketer, Jesus. It's such a great title. I love it. It's beyond cool. And you have a Jesus look, as you probably know and have been told by a lot of people. Anyhow, Brian Hess flies drones over parking lots, finds out where the holes are, and charges $50,000 to Walmart and Marriott and everybody. And then he has 1,000 people go out and fill them. And it's like one of the coolest businesses ever, but that's one of his 4 companies, and they're all enormous. So you get the people that are full of light, force, energy, that are like-minded. Andrew Carnegie said, you got to be working in a spirit of cooperative harmony. While you and I have never met before, we're already in the spirit of cooperative harmony because you've done your inner work, so the outer work is easy. I've done a lot of inner work, so I attract people to me. People say, why do you always have the best authors come to you? I said, because that's what I'm sending out. I don't want somebody that doesn't want to work. If they don't want to work, go to another publisher, go somewhere else, or publish yourself. I'm okay with that. Look, my future days are paid for, right? But that's what Andrew Carnegie did. He quickly got his future day paid for because his mastermind partner, I can take you through all the names, but it's irrelevant. His mastermind partner said, look, the thing that's going to change the world is this Pullman railroad car. We've got railroad tracks across America. But a Pullman car means you can sleep, so you don't have to sit up like this for 5 to 7 days crossing the country. And he said, you've got to give me the money, though, now, because the company's little. It's equivalently a penny stock, we would call it in America, or I don't know what you call it in Europe. But anyhow, he put in $600. Well, within a month, he was making $600 in that. And then pretty soon it was $600 a week, and then $600 a day, and then $600 a minute, because everybody wanted to sleep going across the country, and they would pay, extra. And the sleeping cars were full 100% of the time, both ways across the country. And you look at that now. I'm in a couple AI companies that are doing exactly the same thing, because everything is about communication, transportation, and delivery of services, right, that are valuable and useful. Did I over answer again?
I'm loving the answers. I'm taking it in. This is awesome. So I want to get into the specifics of it. If, let's say, someone wants to start putting together these 12 in their mastermind, where would you have them start? Okay, so decide. Oh, this is a great question. I've never heard that question before. I love it. So decide what you want and put it in writing. You've got to journal each and every day of your life. And I've got 55 years of journals. Oops, this one. Yeah, it's got my name on it, right? And Jim Rohn said so well. Exactly. Jim Rohn said, look, pay $50 for it. This thing is going to give you millions and millions of dollars if you journal. And obviously I got, journals, all of them, almost all of them have and my wife said, when we moved from California here, why don't you get rid of them? You don't need them. I said, no. That's my treasure trove. No, you never get rid of that. Just quickly say, when you journal, what is it you're journaling? Like, what are you writing and describing your whole day? Is it like, the classic little girl's story journal, or is it more goal setting? Like, what are you actually writing? 2 things. One is predominantly the businesses and what I want to do and who I want to do it with and who I want to meet, even though I haven't met them. Because I read omnivorous. It's very goal oriented. Yeah, very goal oriented. Or it's relationship about my family and what I want for our kids, grandkids, and all our future progeny, because I expect them to do great and wonderful things. And I'll gladly tell you that in a second. So back to the question you asked 2 questions ago. Jack and I meet, and we saw the light force energy in each other. We had the white hot burning desire to pull off stuff that nobody had ever pulled off before. I mean, both of us sold over 300,000 books. I'd sold that many from the platform of Dare to Win, which we rewrote later together. But
it was amazing. And we said, look, we're going to work together. But the minute Chicken Soup started taking off, all these people, because I had it written down, we were going to do a whole series, because you don't, in the book business, here's chicken one, and then we had a second helping of Chicken Soup. Once you start, you've got to have the next one. In the business, there's a thing called an S curve, where you put money in at the front. It costs a lot to get going. And we had to buy, Jack, I'm sure told you, we had to buy, nobody would take us. So if we finally got a publisher that was a hybrid publisher, and we had to buy 20,000 books at $6 each. Well, we're signing on for 120,000. I said, don't worry, I'll sell them from the platform alone if I have to, Jack, because we got to get this distributed. And Little Health Communications didn't believe that I could do it, and I did it. A little bit more. I told Jack how to sell from the platform, and he was starting to do good, but he was selling to the wrong market. You have a great product, sell to educators, which teachers ultimately bought it, but at the front end, it's a little hard to sell because they don't make a lot of money. They're making $20,000 a year, and whereas I'm dealing with people that are all making $100,000 or more, and a $20 bill for a book or $15 bill, no problem. Anyhow, so we immediately have all these people come in, including his relative, Kim Kerberger, came and said, "Look, I got teenagers and I'm having trouble with them. Let's do Chicken Soup with the Teenage Soul." And then by then we're making a lot of money in our books because they're selling so fast. We got a company, Time Warner's trying to buy us out, and I meet with the head guy at Time Warner. And I would have hired him now he's gone, but I would have hired him in a blink because he had that light force energy and he saw the strength in us. Larry Kirschberger, we met in Europe. We were together a lot of times. And Larry said, "Hey, look, you're doing Teenage Soul. My daughter owns Nickelodeon. Do you know what Nickelodeon is?"
Yeah.
Yeah, where they slime you and all that. I get with her in California and I say, "Look, could we electronically send out this book and say, rate the books on a scale of 1 to 10. And if it's a story that you can read, understand, and lives in you, and you could tell it immediately, that's a 10 plus, plus, plus." And we had 250 stories we thought were that. And we sent it out to 12,000 kids at Nickelodeon because Jack and I teach 38 principles to make a book a bestseller. I'll send you that book to you. Anyhow, and one of the principles, feedback's a breakfast of champions. And we sent it out and all the kids.
Yeah, Jack mentioned that one.
Yeah. We sent it out to kids and they all said, "This is a book." Well, that book, I hope Jack might have a different number, but I think we sold 19 million the first year. Is that the number he gave you?
I honestly don't remember. I'm going to be honest enough to say. Okay.
By the way, it doesn't matter, but we sold 1 gazillion books. And I'll do the cute story. So my little daughter, it was 6 at the time, Melanie, and was sitting on my lap, and I'm doing all these stories on telephone call, PR after PR, because we had to do 20 PR shows in a day, and she thought it was great. And once in a while, I let her tell the story where we're up at Nickelodeon, and they got their own radio show to 2 million kids, and she is doing all the stories with it, sitting next to me, and this guy's interviewing, "Well, what about this story, Melanie? Can you tell the story of, I wish I had a brother like that?" And she just narrates it. At the end of the show, he says, "Melanie, you just talked to 2 million people." And she went, and she froze because she didn't know. She thought she was just talking to this guy and just have to have a microphone in front of her. She had no idea. And it scared the heck out of her. And I said, "I wish you hadn't told her, until later or something." But it was great fun to see that happen because it never dawned on me because she's a leader's leader, but that would happen. But it did. Anyhow, so Nickelodeon was our helper. Everybody, the bigger point here is once you get a mastermind, you'll get your first 2 people correct. Like Andrew Carnegie had Fripp, Frick, and Elon Musk started with his brother, did really well and made like whatever it was, $5 million. Then he started with Peter Thiel and they made, a gazillion-dollar company. I've got all the numbers somewhere in my head, but I can't pull it.
PayPal.
Yeah, PayPal. And then, he had all that money, bought 12 houses, said, "This is stupid. I'm going to go do what because he wrote down 5 mega goals. Like he wanted to produce and consume electricity, which is, Solar City. And then it became Tesla. And now Tesla's doing such cool stuff. As a stockholder, I got to tell you that, I guess. But, he's going to make Optimus robots that, he thinks it'll be a $30 trillion company. He just got the highest pay ever in the world, guarantee, right? And some dumbass judge that he's owed $262 billion right now because he hit all of his goals, grew at 49% a year. And the judge says nobody deserves to get $262 billion. So the new contract he wrote, if I create 8 trillion with a T. Understand, in America, 1,000 thousands of million, 1,000 millions, a billion, 1,000 billions, a trillion. That's a hell of a lot, a heaven of a lot of money. Talk about wealth democratization, but he's going to create trillion like that because he's got the Tesla robot cars, which are going to replace all driver cars, and they're a million times safer, he says, anyhow, than any driver car because they're faster and think with AI and AIR and AU, all that stuff. I can go through each of those if you need to, but then he's creating the Tesla airplane, which I'll be able to fly from Phoenix to Sweden in 2 hours. Right? Oh, because he's making them, and he makes the cars now. You can watch his newest video of his business meeting. Some people are watching this later, but the new car he's created a new press with robots that he makes a car frame in 17 seconds. And he said, theoretically, physics says I can get it down to 5 seconds, so I can make more cars for less, and the car price is going to come down from 50,000 to 10,000. So, the principle I teach in graduate school, Bucky said the key principle in business is do more with less, called ephemeralization. Do more with less. Do so much with so little, you get everything done, and you have free time to really think. That's why you're here. You're here to think and grow rich, like Napoleon said. Did I overdo it again?
Just a little bit. We're enjoying it, so that's all right. One thing I want to emphasize for those listening is you talk a lot about seeing that energy, seeing the light in someone. For people that aren't aren't that energy sensitive, who that might not come naturally to, can you describe that a little more? Like, how are you seeing the light in someone?
You're asking questions that no one ever asked me before. I love it, Daniel. Everything in the universe is a frequency, right? It's like, and light is a frequency. So you either, like, all of us know what a rheostat is, and you turn up the light or you turn down the light, right? And the people that have done inner work are turning up the light. So as you start to work on yourself and you turn up the light, you start to see stuff you didn't see. That's why the line says many have eyes and cannot see, but they can't see because they're not looking, right? If you're not, and seek and you'll find. If you start to look, you find. Right? So if you start to decide to, hey, I'm going to hang out with people that are high energy, full of life, full of vitality, that are moving toward their destiny. Now, remember, Jack and I both proved that we could sell 300,000 books. Now we want to go to 1.5 million in a year and a half. And it just means we turned up our volume. We carried around a 3x5 card with us, and you looked at it 4 times a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and most importantly, before you go to sleep at night, because the subconscious never sleeps. Otherwise, you'd fall out of bed. Your subconscious has been trained by your mother. She had guardrails on your bed, probably, unless you slept on the floor, right? And then pretty soon you're 2 or 3 years old and you don't need the guardrails. You know wrong or roll out of bed because your subconscious says, nope, you can't do that. Like this morning to wake up for this call, because I'm really early in the morning here. I mean, the sun's just coming over the hill here.
Yeah, it's a comfortable time for me. It's perfect.
Yeah, well, by the way, you see, I'm totally awake. I told my subconscious, wake me up at this time, and 5:59, bingo, I woke up, for a show a half hour later. I haven't had breakfast. I did bring my cup of coffee though, but because you got to eat right to live right too. So, but turning up the light means that if you're going to turn on the light, first of all, you got to think right, and you got to decide that you're going to be full light. Then you got to eat right, and you got to eat live foods to get a live result. In other words, a lot of people eat dead foods, processed foods that aren't foods. And of course, their spirit's dead.
And that's an important distinction there. It's processed foods that just full of chemicals. That's the difference with like live food, real food.
Exactly. Live foods mean you got to start with fresh fruits and vegetables in the morning, right? I mean, it is, right? And you got to drink real, pure, living water. And what Jack and I got to meet the guy from Japan, Emoto, who took pictures of water. If you tell water I love it, he froze the pictures and they look beautiful. And if you tell I hate you, the water goes and chaotic. And Jack and I had breakfast with him at the World's Book Fair, and we just synchronized. He's full of light, he's full of energy, and he's wonderful. But you can tell who's full of energy, and the people that you have do your seminars, are full of light force energy. They have self-decided. In other words, the line Jesus said, The Chosen, and there's a whole great TV show now called The Chosen, which is being done wonderfully, I must admit. I love every episode. But the point is, you've chosen yourself. If the people listening to this are choosing to become the great light force energy they're meant to do. They're taking off the veil. They're taking off the restraints. Because I didn't, you said 144 resistance. You could say no, but you can't stop me. If I've decided that I'm going to go do something wonderful, I'll do it. If Mahatma Gandhi decided he was going to free India, and he was well-educated lawyer from South Africa, actually, but still of Indian descent, he pulled it off. You and I are here to pull off whatever our destiny is. I can't tell you what your destiny is, so let me just tell people how to get there, right? Before you go to sleep at night, you got to do 101 times after you're done kissing your spouse or whoever goodbye or equivalent, kiss the kids goodnight, and the dog stop barking, the animal stop mooing or whatever the noise is. You say 101 times, God in me knows my destiny. God in me knows and will tell me my destiny. God in me knows and will tell me my destiny. God in me knows and tell me my destiny. And when you get your little butt up, you got to have because you're going to be waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning, because that's when God's on clear channel. That's when be still and know that I am God. You've got to have your little pen and paper ready and write it out in detail. You don't write play, because you won't remember the play. You got to get your little bum out of bed and go write in detail what it is that you're going to go accomplish.
Yeah. So I want to ask about the book, Ask. In it, you say you should ask three different parties, maybe we should call them, when you're going to do something. You ask yourself, you ask others, and you ask God.
Right.
Explain that to someone who maybe isn't comfortable or used to speaking to God. How do I ask God, and how do I hear the response?
Okay, so we're saying ask, the bridge from your dreams to your destiny. All of us have dreams, right? And all of us have a destiny, but you got to ask yourself, God, what's my destiny? God, what's my destiny? Before you go to sleep, wake up and write it down. But let me go back in my own story real quick. It's 1973 or 4, and I was trying to be my teacher. I built Wall Street Racket Club. I was doing $2 million a year. I thought I was a hot shot in New York, and I thought I'd arrive, right? Bad news, because I was building out of plastic, PVC, polyvinyl chloride. At a time when the Arabs said, we can write checks so big your banks would bounce, and I went, right? I was so low, I had to go to the biggest library in the world, New York Public Library, and check out a book, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself.
Ouch.
So for 6 months, I'm sleeping in front of another guy's room in Hicksville, Long Island, New York. So I am not styling and profiling. I'm as low. I want to slash my wrists. I feel, because I thought my self-worth and net worth were the same. I thought my money determined who I was. Money had become my God, which is a terrible thing. God's God. There's no other God, right? Money can't be a God. Alcohol shouldn't be your God, all that stuff, right? We can go through the whole litany, but we don't need that. So one night I say, okay, look, God, what is it I'm supposed to do? I'm asking for my destiny. And God did it backwards, right? Because you ask God, ask others, ask yourself. So I'm asking God, what do you want me to do? And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to talk to people that care about things that may matter, that would make a life transformative difference. And the next morning, not thinking anything would happen. But remember, once you set your broadcasting and receiving station, it starts to happen like that. So you got to be, once you're really clear in your destiny, it unfolds. So the next morning at breakfast, my 3 roommates, one guy sold real estate. And I say, hey, do you know anyone that's a speaker, young, that's not a Broadway star, because we're in New York, not a celebrity, not a lawyer, not a doctor, not a cotton top like me, somebody I can relate to? And said, yeah, this kid's 10 or 12 years older than you. He's out in Hauppauge, Long Island, New York. His name's Chip Collins. Here's my ticket. Take my ticket and get in. Well, the real estate was in the pits. I mean, interest rate was 18%, so nothing was selling. So I go out there, and this guy winds the audience up, right? He came into an audience that was depressed, disconsolate, determined that the world was going to hell, because whatever you program to, you get. So if you say, oh, the world's not selling on real estate, so you won't find anything to buy, anything to sell, right? Because you're in the pitch, you reject yourself, right? Self-chosen. But he wound them up. And back then, I know lavalier mics had not been invented yet. It's hard to believe, but this is a little crummy hotel, and it didn't have any mics. So he's shouting, and he burns out his voice. End of it, I go up to him, and I say, Chip, Mark Victor Hansen, I want to take you to lunch. He said, what do you want, kid? Because his voice was burned out. I want to do it. I want to do what you do. He said, you don't want to do this, kid. Go get a real job. I said, let me determine what I want to do. Just tell me how to do it, and I'll do it. So I asked him all the questions. He said, well, look, I own real estate in the 5 boroughs, and I'm kicking ass here. I own a big house in Dix Hill. That doesn't mean anything to you, but trust me, he was making money by this time. He'd been the top salesman at Kodak, and he's ambidextrous and heard somebody speaking. He thought he could do it immediately.
And this is Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great.
No. There's Chip Collins, not the same, not Jim.
Oh, Chip Collins. Okay, yep.
Chip was ambidextrous. He wrote with both hands. And the joke, of course, is I give my right arm to be ambidextrous. But he wrote what the guy said, and the other thing, he wrote what he would say if he could teach. But nobody wanted him at first because while he was top salesman at Kodak, he didn't make it. And I can go there in a minute. But anyhow, he told me exactly what to do if I do the insurance business. And he said, call in 10 offices a day, one will buy it. 9 people turned me down. The 10th guy, it's 6:30 at night, and I parked this little beat-up old Volkswagen that I had 2 blocks away because I was so embarrassed that everything had been taken from me. I had one suit, and the guy says, okay, I'll take your seminars, prospecting, presenting, good work habits, closing. And I said, it's $100, $25 seminar. Now I get $35,000 and $75,000 international. So things have got a heaven of a lot better. So this guy's Big Tony. I mean, he weighed 450 pounds and naked with his ink pen half empty. So he's a big, wonderful guy. And we just really hit it off. And it's an hour and a half together. And I said, Chip gave me the clothes. Do you want to cut the check or have your secretary cut it? And you keep nodding. He said, I'm a big boy, Mark. I can cut the check. But the thing he did for me that got me, I'm ready to leave. And he said, Mark, come back here. I said, yes, sir. What is it, Big Tony? He said, look, I'm the number one guy in the number one life insurance company in the whole world, Metropolitan. Here's a list of all my peers. You call them and you tell them, Big Tony said, you got to get hired. You got to hire my new friend, Mark, or you're going to talk to me and handle it. You got it? I had a gold mine. I was doing 4 talks a day, and in between talks, I'd be selling talks. And back then, this is before you were born, probably. I had $2 worth of dimes in my pocket so I could go to the phone and call the people and say, I'll be right over. And they all thought I was coming to learn to apply to be an insurance salesman. So they all met me. It was like a wonder. It was heaven. So I went from office to office and companies you never heard of, like Guardian and State Mutual. And this whole thing about programming your mind before you go to sleep, back then, $100,000 was like $1 million a year. We were talking 1973 and 4. I wrote down, I want to make 400. So I'd read Magic of Belief, and it said, write it down and then repeat it to yourself 101 times before you go to sleep. I wrote down 400, 400, 400. I'm going to make 400. I'm going to make 400. I'm going to make 400. 2:58 in the morning, I had a digital clock because I had to make sure I got up because some of the talks were at 6 in the morning or 7 in the morning, and then at 10 and 2 and then sometimes at 8 o'clock at night. But I didn't do anything but sell talks and give talks and write talks. And Chip and I masterminded. He was my first real speaking mastermind guy, and we sat every Friday and went over how to make my business better. And I inspired him because I way outperformed, He'd get a couple of talks, make his little stash of cash and go on vacation. He didn't have the same mindset that you got to have a big stash of cash so you really get to be important and can democratize wealth. Anyhow, I delivered the goods and we had a ball. Only Tony Robbins and I ever did 1,000 talks a year for the first 3 years. Tony and I were talking one day and he said, you and I are nuts. I said, I know, but look, we're still nuts. You're doing seminars with hundreds of thousands and I'm selling more books. So we're both happy doing what we're doing. We're in our right livelihood.
Yeah, that's insane though. I thought we did a lot in 2019 when we did 265 events all over Northern Europe and you just 4X'd us.
Well, by the way, it's different. I was, remember, there's 18 million people in Metro, 5 boroughs of New York. So it was easy. You just went from building to building and I raced my little car. And then within 2 weeks, I had so many talks and so much money. I bought a brand new Chrysler Cordoba with white Corinthian leather. It was just really cool.
I love that. We always end these interviews with a rapid fire round. So I'm going to ask you a round of questions. You just answer the first thing that comes to mind. You ready? All right. Here we go. First one here. Best investment that you've made for under $1,000 that changed your life?
Joining the National Speakers Association. I'm one of the founders. I met the chairman, Robert, and he said, you got to join us and you're going to meet all the best speakers. And back then they were selling seminars for $1,000 each and they worked for like General Motors or something and did a talk. And when they got paid $1,000, they sold 3 Cadillacs to the audience. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to sell my product. I wanted to sell their product. Although I sell people on their product and then sell my product to sell their product. I've never said that either before. That's pretty cool.
Oh, nice. All right. What is a quote you keep close at all times?
I really believe asking is the answer. And my quote is, the size of your ask determines the size of your results. So if you ask, how am I going to make 100 grand? Your subconscious figures that out. If you ask how to make $1 million, subconscious figures out. If you ask how to do $1 billion, obviously a lot of people have done that. Right now, we've got over 6,000 billionaires in the world. And we're writing books for a lot of them, which you're going to get interviewed on the show, like John Paul DeJoria, and they just ask a bigger question or a better question, either way.
Yeah, better question. What's the biggest myth about success that you'd like to erase?
That success looks easy. It takes hard work, and we've got imbeciles that are pushing for, in your country and mine, and around the world, for socialism and communism. The systems don't work at all. They're tested, terrible, and an absolute failure, and they ultimately kill the people that believe in there's a free lunch. There's no free lunch. Right now, we got these asinine people saying, you've got white privilege. I got no white privilege. My parents had no money. They came from Denmark. They were not far from where you are, right? Great two Scandinavian countries right there. Anyhow, they had nothing. So they gave me a great work ethic, and they gave me obviously a great mind that I could work on, but I have disciplined it. My father saw me right before he died. He never heard me speak. And I was talking to 4,000 people, and he said, my God, son, you're right. Because he wanted me to take over his Danish bakery, which you don't make money at 5 cents a roll. And I knew I needed to be rich to do what I want to do. I said, Dad, I'm a white glove guy. I'm not sure what one is, but I'm sure I am.
All right. What is a book, none of your own, that you gift most often?
In business, I'd say Think and Grow Rich. In spiritual, I'd say Neville's a book called Resurrection. It just really teaches you how to live in the assumption of the wish fulfilled.
Very nice. All right, last question. What is one thing you're really looking forward to for yourself in the next 12 months?
When we wrote Ask, the front of it, you got to read that. It'll take you 10 minutes to read the Fable of Michaela, because, you know, the world's greatest fabulist is out of Denmark, Hans Christiansen, 147 fables, and everybody knows all of them. The Ugly Duckling, The King Has No Clothes, humma, humma, humma. Crystal wrote the fable, and now we've turned it into 3 screenplays, and we're meeting with the biggest people in Hollywood to turn it into movies, and all of them are reading it and saying, my wife is beyond wise and brilliant and beautiful at every level. I call her the goddess of exquisiteness. We're being told that this is going to be bigger than Harry Potter, which is fascinating, because in Guinness Book of Records, I'm the world's best-selling author, and Miss Harry Potter is the world's best-selling fiction author until my wife shows up.
Okay, well, I'll definitely watch those movies. I can promise you. You got one viewer here.
Thank you.
All right, we end every episode with we love giving gifts to our audience. So I wanted to give you the chance to connect with them for those who want to keep connecting with you after the show.
Yeah. So go to askthebookclub.com. Askthebookclub.com, and we give you a free lot of stuff. Just, it's wonderful, because I want everyone to know how to ask. What we're teaching you there is how to become a master asker. Because if you ask me how to define myself, I am a master asker. I asked my wife to marry me after I wrote down 267 things I needed in an ideal wife, both positive and negative. She couldn't be an alcoholic. She couldn't smoke, because I'm not going to kiss an ashtray. She had to have a radiant spirit, back to the light force energy that a human carries. She carries the most light force energy of any woman I've ever met. I
can imagine our lists would be pretty similar there. Mark, I appreciate you joining us here today.
My pleasure.
This was absolutely amazing, and we're definitely going to be speaking again soon.
Good.
Thank you for joining us on this episode with Mark Victor Hansen. We are now going to jump into my favorite segment of the episode. What is the difference that makes the difference? Where me and the team have analyzed what we learned from the speaker and looked at, like, what are the key takeaways and how can we implement them into our lives? So today we've identified 5 key takeaways from Mark. And our first one is your results expand or shrink to the size of your ask. So Mark said it straight, right? The size of your ask determines the size of your result. Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they're asking small questions and playing small games. So what does this mean? How do we implement this? So write down right now, just write down one bigger question that forces a new identity. Like, how do we build a business that serves 10,000 people? So if you've been serving 100, how do we build a business that serves 10,000? How do I become financially free in 36 months? Who do I need to become to earn $1 million a year? Something that will change the way you think, right? And then you put it somewhere where you will see it daily. And then take one action today that matches that ask. It be one call, one pitch, one proposal, one partnership reach out, something. All right, number 2, the right partnership is a cheat code. So Chicken Soup for the Soul didn't become a global phenomenon because Mark or Jack was smarter. It exploded because they built a mastermind alliance, a real partnership with shared vision, shared work, and shared momentum. Mark made the point, 1 + 1 is not 2, it multiplies. So how do we implement this? Well, identify 3 people who have high standards, high energy, and a track record of execution. Invite them into a simple mastermind structure. 1 call a week, you share your goals, you share your obstacles, and you share your next actions. The rule? No spectators, only builders. All right? Number 3, write it down, program your subconscious, and let repetition do the heavy lifting. So this was a core theme throughout the interview. Goals are not wishes. Goals are programming. Mark talked about the 3x5 card, reading it multiple times a day, and especially before sleep because the subconscious never sleeps. So let's implement this. Write 1 measurable goal on a card. Keep it simple for yourself. And do it in a thankful, grateful way, right? So it could be, I'm so happy and thankful that I now earn per month. I'm so happy and thankful that we sell X units per month. And then every day you read it 4 times. And every morning, every midday, every evening, and then just before bed. Bonus, there's a little bonus trick. Once you hit momentum, raise the target. You don't arrive, scale. So once you hit that first target, add a 0 to the end of it. All right, our fourth takeaway. Rejection is not personal. Just tell yourself, next. Mark and Jack got rejected 144 times by publishers. Their mindset can be summarized in 1 word, next. This is the difference between those who succeed and those who don't, right? What is the difference that makes the difference? Those who don't, they take rejection personally. Pros, to see it as a numbers game. So here's how we implement it. Set an ask quota for the week. That could be 10 pitches, 10 sales conversations, 10 partnership asks, 10 investor asks, and then you track it just like if you were working out. You take out your emotions and realize that our job is to ask. It's not the outcome, it's the journey. The market's job is to then answer. Every no you get takes you closer to the yes that changes everything. Finally, 5, distribution wins. Talent is useless if no one sees it. So this is where Mark's sales genius really shows up. It wasn't just writing stories, it was building reach, selling from the stage, PR, testing, feedback, getting the book into the right hands. A great message that no one hears has 0 impact. So what does this mean for us? Pick 1 new distribution channel to win for the next 90 days. That could be going on external podcasts, doing public speaking, webinars, building an email list, content, running ads. Build a feedback loop. Basically pull in the data and see what did people like, what did people share, what did people buy. And here's the key. Don't wait until it's perfect. Do it, test it, get the feedback, and then improve it. All right, guys, I really appreciate you joining us here today. And again, if you enjoyed this episode, please do what thousands of people all over the world have already done. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because I can promise you're going to love the next episode. And if you really like this episode and you know someone that really needs to ask bigger or needs help to get over rejection, just share this episode with them. Let them see what you've learned, and maybe you guys can discuss it together on your next mastermind session. And next week, we've got a really cool episode. I got to interview Marques Ogden. Marques Ogden was a NFL defensive tackle. That means he played pro American football, or for my American friends here, football, and played in the NFL. His big brother is a Hall of Fame defensive tackle. And I loved doing this interview with him because he broke down how he climbed that mountain, then afterwards lost everything, and then rebuilt himself a business empire. So if you want a real world blueprint for resilience, identity, and rebuilding after a financial punch to the face, you do not want to miss that episode. So I'll see you next week. Thank you for being a part of the Swedish Wealth Institute, and have an amazing day.
My ego, my bravado, my very arrogant nature took me down, and I ended up crashing and burning and losing everything. I was robbing Peter to pay Paul from other jobs. All of my money, gone. My home, leveraged. Credit cards maxed out. I literally put about $2.5 to $3 million into a job. And when it came time to collect, I got goose egg.